The night the sky burned over Silver Bend, rancher Jake Carver rode into the fire and came out with a secret that would change his life forever. They called him a hero, but what waited for him the next morning was no medal, it was a wife. Something's not right out here in the Wild West. Let's find out. The wind howled across the plains, carrying the scent of smoke and fear. Silver Bend was asleep when the sky turned red, a barn ablaze at the edge of Willow Creek Ranch. Flames clawed at the night, lighting up the storm clouds like fire from heaven. Jake Carver's horse skidded to a halt before the inferno. He didn't wait for help. He jumped off, coat over his mouth, and plunged into the chaos. Horses screamed, timber cracked, and embers burned through his shirt as he cut the ropes and freed the animals one by one. "Carver, get out of there!" someone yelled through the smoke, but Jake barely heard. He caught a sound beneath the roar, a faint cry, a woman's voice. He kicked through a half-collapsed door and found her, a young woman trapped under a fallen beam, coughing, eyes wide with terror. Without thinking, he lifted the burning timber, the heat searing his arms. She gasped, reaching for him, trembling. "I got you," Jake rasped, his voice rough from smoke. "Hold on." The roof groaned above them. He threw his coat around her, pulled her close, and ran through the fire as the ceiling gave way. Sparks rained down like the devil's breath. They hit the dirt outside just as the barn exploded behind them. Jake covered her with his body, shielding her from the blast. Then, silence. Only the crackle of dying fire. The woman stirred once, whispering something he couldn't hear. Jake tried to speak, but the world tilted, black spots filling his vision. As he collapsed beside her, one last thought cut through the smoke. He didn't even know her name. Morning broke over Silver Bend, but peace didn't come with it. The town was already alive with whispers, the kind that crawled faster than wildfire. Jake Carver rode through hell and came back with a woman in his arms. Some said she was dead. Others swore she was a ghost. Jake awoke on his porch swing, head pounding, bandages tight around his ribs. The smell of smoke still clung to him. He tried to piece together the night before, the fire, the woman, her face, but everything blurred like a bad dream. Down the road at Delaney's diner, May Delaney poured coffee and gossip in equal measure. "You hear? The Thorn Barn's gone, and Carver pulled out a lady nobody's ever seen. Some folks reckon he started that fire himself, for attention." By the time Jake saddled up to ride into town, half of Silver Bend was already staring. Sheriff Crowley stood on the boardwalk, hat low, jaw tight. "Heard you played hero last night," he said. "Only thing is, no one saw who lit the match." Jake frowned. "You think I burned down Thorn's barn?" Crowley's eyes narrowed. "Don't know what to think, but that girl you saved, she vanished before sunrise. Maybe she knows more than you do." Jake looked toward the horizon where the smoke still rose faintly over the plains. The memory of her voice echoed in his mind, soft, frightened, unfinished. If she was gone, she'd taken the truth with her. And out here, truth was worth more than gold. Don't turn away now. Someone's lying about that fire, and Jake's about to find out who. The wind that night carried a strange chill across Willow Creek Ranch. Too cold, too quiet for spring. Jake leaned against the corral fence, staring out over the moonlit fields, trying to shake the unease twisting in his gut. The horses shifted restlessly, their ears twitching toward the barn that now stood half-collapsed, smoldering like a ghost of what had been lost. He'd spent the day rebuilding fences and trying not to think about the woman he'd pulled from the fire. But her voice wouldn't leave him. That whisper, soft, trembling, almost pleading. "Don't A faint creak broke the silence. Jake's hand went to his revolver. The sound came again. The barn door, moving ever so slightly. He stepped closer, boots crunching against the dirt. "Who's there?" he called, his voice low and sharp. No answer. Inside, the lantern swung from a hook, still warm, swaying gently. The air smelled faintly of lavender and smoke, her scent. Then he saw it. A trail of faint footprints in the dust, small and bare, leading toward the back door. Jake followed them outside, heart pounding. They stopped near the fence, beside something glinting in the moonlight. He knelt and picked it up. A silver hairpin, delicate, carved with the shape of a rose. It was hers. The night seemed to hold its breath. Somewhere out there, someone was watching him. He could feel it, eyes in the darkness, patient, waiting. Jake tightened his grip on the hairpin and looked toward the hills. "Whoever you are," he muttered, "you picked the wrong ranch to haunt." The wind answered with a whisper that almost sounded like a woman's laugh. By noon, the sun blazed over Silver Bend, baking the dust into gold. Jake rode into town with the silver hairpin in his pocket, the memory of that midnight laughter still crawling under his skin. He found Sheriff Amos Crowley leaning outside his office, boots up, hat tilted low, sipping something stronger than coffee. "Carver," the sheriff drawled, "you look like hell dragged you backward." Jake dismounted, eyes narrowed. "You got answers, Amos, or just jokes?" Crowley sighed, tipping his hat back. "Heard you've been poking around Thorne's business. I'd keep my nose out if I were you." "Why's that?" The sheriff looked around before lowering his voice. "Because Ethan Thorne owes Silas Reed more money than the bank can count. Reed's been looking for a way to collect, and I reckon that fire was no accident." Jake's jaw clenched. "You saying someone torched it on purpose?" Crowley nodded slowly. "Wouldn't surprise me. And if you pulled Thorne's niece out of that blaze, son, that makes you part of the story. Reed don't like heroes messing with his business." Jake felt the weight of the hairpin against his palm. The girl, Lila. She was in that barn for a reason, wasn't she? Crowley studied him. "That's the trouble, Jake. Nobody knows why. But she's missing now, and the only folks who might have seen her work for Reed." The sheriff stood, dusting off his coat. "Watch your back, Carver. You think you saved her? Maybe you just pulled the fuse on a stick of dynamite." Jake's eyes hardened as he turned toward the open street. "Then I better find her before the fuse burns out." The sun dipped low, spilling gold over Willow Creek Ranch. Jake had spent the day pacing his land, restless and wired, the sheriff's warning echoing through his mind. Every creak, every gust of wind felt like a threat waiting to show its face. As dusk settled, he pushed through his front door and froze. The smell hit him first. Coffee brewing, biscuits baking. Then the sound, the soft hum of a woman's voice coming from his kitchen. His hand went straight to his revolver. "Who's in there?" A pause. Then a calm, feminine voice replied, "You're home early." Jake stepped into the light. She stood by the stove, wearing one of his old plaid shirts, sleeves rolled to her elbows, auburn hair catching the firelight. The woman from the flames, very much alive. He lowered the gun, stunned. "You?" She smiled faintly. "You saved me. Least I could do was make you dinner." He blinked. "You shouldn't even be here." Her eyes dropped, nervous but steady. "I didn't know where else to go." Uncle Ethan's gone, and Sheriff Crowley said you'd keep me safe. Jake's heart thudded. You remember me then? I remember your voice, she said softly, and that you didn't let go. The silence between them stretched, thick with confusion and something neither could name. Finally, Jake muttered, You can stay the night. Just the night. She nodded, her gaze lingering on him with something fragile and grateful. But as she turned away, Jake caught a flicker in her eyes, not relief, but fear. And outside, in the dark beyond the porch light, a match flared, someone watching from the ridge. By the next evening, Silver Bend buzzed louder than a hornet's nest. Word had spread fast. Jake Carver's mystery woman was alive and staying under his roof. Men muttered, women whispered, and May Delaney's diner couldn't pour coffee fast enough for the gossip. Jake needed answers, and there was only one man who might have them, Silas Reed. The Rusty Spur Saloon was half shadow, half smoke. Reed sat in the back like a king without a crown, slick hair, gold tooth flashing whenever he smiled. "Well, well," Reed drawled, "the brave rancher himself. I heard you've taken in a thorn girl. Generous of you." Jake's jaw tightened. "You know damn well that fire wasn't an accident. Who lit it?" Reed's grin widened. "Maybe you should ask your new house guest. She's the reason it started." Jake lunged, grabbing Reed by the collar. Chairs scraped, guns cocked. Reed's men closed in, but Reed only laughed. "Careful, Carver. A man can lose more than his temper in this town." Jake let him go, breathing hard. "If you touch her, I'll bury you myself." Reed leaned in close. "Oh, I don't have to touch her. I already own what her uncle promised me." Jake froze. "What the hell does that mean?" Reed winked. "You'll find out soon enough, hero. Someone's playing a dangerous game, and Jake's walking straight into it. Don't blink. The next move's coming." The ranch lay quiet under a pale moon, but Jake couldn't shake the echo of Silas Reed's words. "I already own what her uncle promised me." Every time he replayed it, the meaning cut deeper. Inside, the faint glow of lamplight spilled from the parlor. Lila sat curled on the couch, blanket around her shoulders, eyes fixed on the fire. When she noticed Jake, she tried to smile, but it trembled. "You shouldn't have gone into town," she said softly. "Reed doesn't forgive easily." Jake poured a drink, watching her closely. "You know him." A flicker of fear crossed her face. "Everyone in Silver Bend knows Silas Reed." "Not like that." He stepped closer. "He said your uncle promised him something. What did he mean?" She looked down at her hands, twisting the edge of the blanket. "My uncle, he made mistakes. Gambling, debts. Reed offered him a deal to wipe the slate clean." "What kind of deal?" She hesitated. "One that involved me." Jake's breath caught. He knelt beside her. "Lila, what did he do?" Tears glistened in her eyes. "I didn't know until after the fire. Uncle Ethan promised me as payment." Jake stared, shock hardening into fury. "He sold you?" She nodded, barely whispering. "To Reed. But you saved me first." Outside, the wind howled against the windows like a warning, and Jake knew the fight had only just begun. Thunder rolled low across the plains, dark clouds gathering like vultures over Willow Creek Ranch. Jake stood by the window, revolver on the table, watching the wind twist through the grass. Lila was pacing, wringing her hands. The storm outside matched the one in her eyes. "He won't stop," she whispered. "Silas Reed doesn't lose." Jake turned toward her. "He already has. You're here. You're safe." She shook her head. "You don't understand. Uncle Ethan promised him more than money. Reed thinks he owns me." Before Jake could answer, a gunshot cracked through the night. The front window shattered, glass flying. Lila screamed as Jake tackled her to the floor. Outside, horses thundered up the ridge, Reed's men. Lightning flashed, illuminating figures with rifles. Jake grabbed his gun belt. "Stay down!" Bullets tore through the porch posts. Jake fired back, hitting one silhouette. The others scattered into the storm. Lila clutched his arm. "Please, stop. This is my fault." Jake grabbed her shoulders. "No, it's his fault, and I'm done running from him." Another shot rang out, and this time a voice. "Enough!" Through the rain rode Ethan Thorne, drenched and wild-eyed. "Jake!" he shouted. "It's done! He's been paid!" Jake's grip tightened on his revolver. "Paid how?" Ethan met his gaze, guilt heavy in his eyes. "With her." Lightning split the sky, and Lila's sobs were drowned out by thunder. Rain hammered the tin roof, drumming like the heartbeat of the storm itself. Jake stood in the doorway, soaked to the bone, his gun still smoking. Ethan Thorne stumbled inside, dripping water and guilt in equal measure. Lila stood frozen by the hearth, her face pale, eyes shining with disbelief. Jake's voice was low, dangerous. "Say it again." Ethan swallowed hard. "I made a deal. Reed wanted Lila as collateral. I couldn't pay him, Jake. I thought, if I tied her to someone stronger—" "You thought you'd hand her over to me?" Jake snapped. "Like cattle at auction?" Ethan's voice cracked. "You saved her life. I figured you'd protect her better than anyone." Lila stepped forward, tears streaming. "You used me, Uncle. You didn't save me. You sold me. Twice." Jake turned away, fists clenched, fury boiling beneath his calm. "So this whole thing, the fire, the marriage talk, it's all just a damn business deal?" Ethan shook his head desperately. "No! The sheriff witnessed it. You said yes. You were barely conscious, but—" Jake froze. "What?" Lila's breath hitched. "You don't remember?" Jake looked between them, the truth cutting like a knife. "You're saying I married her and didn't even know it?" Ethan nodded, eyes down. "It was the only way to keep Reed off her trail." The thunder rolled again, deep and cruel, as Jake turned toward Lila, the firelight catching in her trembling eyes. "Then I guess I've been living with my wife," he said quietly, without ever being asked. Dawn crept over the ranch, gray and heavy. The storm had passed, but the silence it left behind felt worse than thunder. Jake sat alone at the table, the night's truth pounding in his head. Married, lied to, used. Every word echoed until it burned. Lila's things were gone. Her blanket, her boots by the door, even the little hairpin he'd found. The house felt hollow without her voice. He told himself it was better that way, but his chest ached like a bullet wound. He poured coffee, trying to drown his thoughts, when something caught his eye. A folded letter on the mantel, sealed with wax. His name scrawled across it in Lila's delicate hand. He broke the seal. "Jake, I never meant to lie. My uncle's deal was made before the fire. I didn't know until it was too late. Silas Reed said he'd kill anyone who stood between him and what he was owed. When you saved me, you became his new target. That's why I left, to keep you alive. Don't come after me. And Jake, I never wanted to be your burden, only your reason to fight. Lila. Jake closed his eyes, the paper trembling in his grip. He holstered his gun, saddled his horse, and looked toward the horizon where the sun bled red over the hills. If Reed wants a fight, he muttered, he's about to get one.
The midday sun blazed over the dry canyon, heat rippling off the rocks. Jake rode hard, dust rising behind him like smoke. At the ridge below, Silas Reed waited with 6 men, rifles gleaming. Lila stood nearby, her hands tied, defiance burning through fear. Reed grinned when Jake dismounted. You should have stayed on your ranch, Carver. This ain't your fight. Jake's voice was cold steel. You made it my fight when you came for her. Reed laughed. You don't even know what she is to you. Jake drew his gun. I know enough. Before Reed could speak again, the echo of hooves filled the canyon. Sheriff Crowley and his deputies appeared from the ridge, rifles raised. The sheriff's voice rang out. Drop your weapons, Reed. We've got your confession right here. Lila's eyes widened as Jake pulled a document from his coat, the marriage certificate Ethan had filed with the county clerk. She's not yours to threaten, Jake said evenly. By law and by choice, she's my wife. Reed's grin faltered. You're bluffing. Crowley smirked. Paper says otherwise. The deputies closed in. Reed's men hesitated, then lowered their guns. Jake walked to Lila, cutting her ropes. Their eyes met. Exhaustion, relief, something deeper. You really are my husband, she whispered. Jake smiled faintly, brushing soot from her cheek. Reckon I am. And for the first time in a long while, the Wild West felt quiet. Morning broke soft and golden over Willow Creek Ranch. The storm was gone, the air washed clean. The smell of rain and fresh hay drifted through the open window as the sun spilled across the rebuilt barn, a promise rising from the ashes. Jake stood on the porch, coffee in hand, watching Lila feed the horses. Her laughter carried across the yard, light and free. A sound he hadn't realized he'd been waiting for. The woman who once trembled in the fire now moved with quiet strength, the kind that could calm any storm. She turned, catching him watching her, and smiled. You planning to stare all morning, Mr. Carver? He grinned. Just making sure this ain't another dream. Lila walked up to him, slipping her hand into his. Feels real to me. He looked down at her, eyes soft but steady. Never figured I'd find peace out here. Guess I finally got what I deserved. She tilted her head. A reward? He smiled. No, ma'am. A reason to live. The wind carried the scent of sage and sunlight as they stood together, the land stretching wide and wild before them, untamed, beautiful, and theirs. Somewhere in Silver Bend, the gossip had already turned into legend, the brave rancher who rode through fire and found his forever in the ashes.
Thank you for watching till the end. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. We'll be dropping brand new powerful stories every single day. See you on the next one.